slipping back into the OG, and no time had passed because clearly all three of them do not look like time has passed. So I need to get a hold of whatever they are drinking because clearly it is like the Philosopher's Stone or something because they are not aging. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. And today, I can't really call them retro reviews anymore because Generation Q is not that old, so rewind reviews, I guess, for season 1 of Generation Q. I'm here in my Generation Q shirt, ready to talk about the season 1 premiere of Generation Q, the L Word Generation Q, of course. And when I started my channel, as most people who come here know, I started it with episode 6. So I never got to talk about the first 5 episodes apart from in like a roundup of the entire season. So since the gap is so painfully long between season 1 and 2, and I've just finished the entire original series of the L Word, what better use of my time than to talk about episodes 1 through 5 plus 8 of Generation Q, because I was going to do re-reviews of 6, 7, and 8 because I've done those on my channel, and those were the first videos I did on YouTube. I'm not saying I'm a master or anything now, but I was still really, really learning, and didn't have I still don't have like insane confidence, but I think it's come along a little bit since then. And a couple of months ago, I did the re-reviews for episodes 6 and 7 already, since it was like a year after they'd aired. So I'll link them in the cards above and at the end. So if you want to go and watch those, you can watch them now. And then we're going to do 1 through 5 and then episode 8 as well. And hopefully by the time we've got through those, 1 will have had a trailer, 2 will have had an air date, and 3, the air date is somewhere near in the future. And people ask me all the time, like, when is the show coming back? No day is complete without someone in one of those Facebook groups asking, when's season 2? So I talk about it in my live every single week. If you want to know like my thoughts, every week in my live we talk about like all the pictures that came out, location stuff, behind the scenes. So those are great things to come to if you have questions, or if you just want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Again, it's not everything. I'm not working behind the scenes. I'm working with the information I'm given and like my background of stuff. So if you want to come and chat about that, please come to the live, as I love doing the lives on Fridays and I would love to see you there. So as always, they're Fridays, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific. I am looking at possibly doing, every other week maybe, or once a month, something a bit later, as I know those are like awkward times if you work like 9 to 5 in the US, for example. So I am working on it at the moment, and I will change it whenever we get to season 2, because obviously my whole schedule of the way I do things will completely change, because it will be really heavy with content like around Sunday and Monday and stuff, because of the L Word coming back and everything like that. And it also depends when it comes back. I'm going to talk about Dexter on my channel too. So if you really, really want to know what my thought is on season 2, I personally really think we will get it before December, and I am guessing September, October. I think that Dexter will air over Christmas, so I think it's more likely that we'll get Generation Q before then, but that's just me and my opinion, so take that as you will. So enough rambling. let's get on to season 1, episode 1, the series premiere of The L Word Generation Q. Let's do it again. This song is copyrighted. This song is copyrighted. This song is copyrighted. If someone was able to video me watching this episode when I first saw it, I would have been like a kid in a candy store. I think that I just sat there through the entire episode, like smiling like this. I was so happy when this aired, and I remember watching it on like a Sunday morning. And it was just one of those days where I was on like a high after it, and I just like went and watched loads of L Word all day. All I talked about was the L Word, and I just was so happy after this aired. So apologies in advance if throughout this I'm just like, and this was great because I just really, really enjoyed this episode. I think it was a great premiere. I think it was a great homage to the original L Word and introducing a new show, new characters, even like obviously new writers, new location. Well, I know it's kind of like it's still in LA, but it is a different location and they're not filming in Canada anymore. So it's a great episode in my opinion. The only thing I didn't like was the first 3 minutes. I understand why they did it. I understand it was a very like, this isn't your mother's lesbian drama, and you know, it's not this sort of male gaze show. Like maybe they were going for shock value. Honestly, it wasn't for me. And after everything after that I loved, but just that first few minutes, I could have done without it. And I think it was important that they did start this episode, these scenes with the newbies. And again, I'm really trying to as well remember that if you go back to season 1 of the original show, like Alice and Shane weren't even really that like upfront in the storyline. Like there was the group of like the B kind of characters, and then it was more Bette, Tina, Jenny, Marina. So shows like this, like it takes time for shows to kind of find their footing and see if certain people have chemistry that they didn't even know they would have. And I mean, this happens on like any television show. So I do give a little bit of grace to the newbies and them kind of finding their chemistry and their banter and things like that, because I think it's the premiere of a show. So there's going to be awkward moments. There's going to be, you know, finding their own way. But I think that with this, it was highlighted because the chemistry between Jennifer Beals, Leisha Haley, and Kate Manning is just so good. And they obviously, you know, it's like putting on an old pair of jeans. Like they have been on a show together for 6 years and they have a really strong relationship, and it's just they're already and I'm sure it took them a little while to get back into it, but they all seem to get along really well anyway, so I'm sure it was pretty easy to slip back into things for them. I loved all the introductory scenes, even Finley on the bike. Like I love that. It was very much, we are shooting LA for LA, as you know, Adele would say from season 5. So I love that whole thing. And going to everybody's house, like it just was great, and seeing where they are in life but not getting too much information. And literally, like when I watched this the first time, like when they went to everybody's house, I was like, oh, so excited. And I was cracking up when I was watching this just like a little bit ago, and I made this little clip thing, and I never do stuff like this, and it was kind of the last, you know, year and a bit through the eyes of the L Word. And I used the scene where Gigi is taking the kids out and Alice and Nat. I'll put it in at the end so anybody who hasn't seen it can see it. And where Alice and Nat are like, we're gonna wave at the window, and I put it in as like April in the pandemic, like last April, where everybody was like standing outside each other's house like with waving. I just thought it was a really funny, like watching it back now, and it just made me think of that. But the only critical thing I have about this is I needed more Gigi in this episode. We only got that one little scene at the house, and I think this episode, another thing it did really well is it showed us enough that created a lot of interest. Like, I wanted to know more, and I still am in that position after 8 episodes. Like, we all know that there's questions that haven't been answered, and even things like, because of the way I think the press was allowed to see 3 episodes, and so I was reading like reviews and stuff before I actually saw the episode, and I know I saw it, I think, a day before it aired. And when I was reading the reviews, they did say like, you don't find out in the first episode what happened to Jenny, and that did kind of keep the little bit of the, when are they going to mention it? Because I knew eventually they were going to wrap it up, but even things like that just kept you going back. And even now, obviously season 2, like, I want to know what's going to happen, and what, all these other things that have been missing for the past 12 years that we'd love to know. I'm going to jump around quite a lot. Like, I don't think it's necessary for me to go through this episode and tell you everything that happens, because I'm pretty sure that most people who are watching a video about Generation Q now have seen the episode, or I'd hope they'd seen the episode. So Bette and Shane and Alice, when they have their little gals gabs, and as we now know, that's what they call, like, the OGs having a conversation like this, that's what they call it in the writers' room of Generation Q. So I loved that scene because it was just such familiar territory. Like, I just felt like I was, boom, back in the planet, back in my happy place, and just all their chemistry, everything, it was just still there, and I loved it. That was one of the best scenes for me in this episode by far. Especially when they're talking about Alice's mom, and I was just like, there's so many little things like that are beautiful homages to the original show, but it's done very subtly and very well, because it's not so out of left field or like crazy complicated specific that a new viewer who has no interest in watching the OG, or just hasn't watched it yet, that they would be totally confused. And I had a couple of people, like friends of mine, that they've never seen the original show, and when Generation Q was coming out, they were like, oh, do I have to watch the original show? And of course I said, yes, of course you have to. It's illegal not to. But like, there are people that won't have watched it, and I can imagine maybe people who are really in their teens or early 20s, like, don't want to go watch the original show. Like, I would find it super interesting too, but there's some people who they'll want to watch Generation Q, and there's a lot of references in this, like the Lenore thing. Alice talks about the vagina rejuvenation. Alice and Bette, when Bette's on the show, talk about stealing the sign. Like, and of course, like the mention of Tina and all these things. Like, it's just brilliantly done, in my opinion. And I loved all of the references. They were one of my favorite parts too. There were other silly little subtle things that were just like when Alice is saying, oh, I feel like that hiatus was like a decade, and like Bette at the beginning's like, hello again. I love stuff like that too, where it's like speaking to the audience and stuff. And I think that the way that they kind of melded the newbies and the OGs together was really good, because sometimes it can be really forced when they have, the whole big thing right now is like revivals and reboots, And when they are having smatterings of old characters and new characters come in, it can feel really forced. But I did like how there were multiple ways that they were all connected, and like Sophie works for Alice, and then we've had this, you know, thing pop up with Danny and Bette, and then Danny coming and asking Bette for a job. Like, it felt very organic. And then there are, you know, like Micah is a part of the newbies, but he's not really connected to an OG. And like Finley in the beginning works for Alice, but then she more is like connected to Shane with the moving thing, but it happens in an organic way through like Finley becomes living with Shane, like friends through Alice because she works there, and Finley got the job because of Sophie, and then Sophie, and like it all makes sense in that way. It's not like forced and just all these people just happen to be together, like all these people who would not know each other. Like it just, there's no, it wouldn't make sense if they like bumped into each other at a bar or something. Like, why would they be hanging out in the same places? Like, work is the reason that they know each other, and that makes complete sense. I love the aspect of Alice having a show. I mean, I know this, you know, goes more than this episode, but I think this was a brilliant decision. I love Alice having her own show. The Kamala Harris thing too. Obviously, when this episode aired, like, she was not the vice president, nor was she running for it. So it was really cool, like, that they had, you know, her with a little picture on the show. And I think everything they did with the show, and Alice having Bette on the show, and how Bette's like, you know, you've never given me a break even for one day. And it's just so, like, feels like the original in all the best ways, but just kind of brighter and shinier and new. I did also really love Bette doing the speech downtown, and then I remember when I was watching it originally, and the guy, you know, Felicity Adams' husband, like, calls Bette out. That was when I literally was like, oh, Bette, never change, still being inappropriate. And obviously, like, in the beginning of this episode, we didn't, you know, there wasn't a moment where they literally were like, oh, Bette and Tina are divorced, or this. We got these little, like, tidbits throughout the episode. The absolute best moment, top number one moment of this episode is at the Gals Gab, and when Bette picks up the phone, Shane and Alice are like, Tina, like, it absolutely killed me because it's just so accurate. It's so like the OG show. I love that moment. It's my favorite episode from the pilot. And I mean, at the end of the episode, we do finally get Bette saying, I'm an ex-wife, and obviously the signs were there. Like, it was obvious that Tina wasn't there. And even when Bette and Tina were on the phone, and Bette was talking like about the AP classes and stuff, I feel like the energy like felt different. So it was obvious she wasn't talking to her as her wife. Like, there was no I love you or anything like that. So I think it was pretty obvious throughout the episode, but you did need that confirmation of they are divorced. And one thing I didn't notice before, but when I watched it this time I did, I could be wrong, but in the episode 6, where Tina comes back and Bette's going out to talk to the reporters, and she like pulls her chain, and she has what I believe, and I think what most people believe, is her wedding ring like on a chain. And in this pilot, you can like, she has her shirt and you can see like the same chain, but you can't see the ring because it's like that part is hidden by her shirt. But it definitely looks like it's the chain with the ring on it to me. Especially when Bette and Angie are like arguing, you can see it pretty obvious because she's got like her shirt undone like that. Another great scene is when, after like the whole debacle with the speech, and Alice and Shane are at Bette's house, and, you know, again, it's just like comfy little moment with the OGs. And whenever Bette's like, okay, can you guys excuse me when Angie comes home, and Alice and, I almost said Leisha and Kate, and Alice and Shane are saying, oh, you want to go for a burrito, you want to go for a burger? Like, sometimes I look at them on screen and I'm like, is that Alice and Shane or is it Leisha and Kate? Because they just, I love like their authenticity, and because they are like best friends and their chemistry, and like, you know, even more so, obviously we hadn't seen the Pants podcast or listened to the Pants podcast when this episode came out, so we've been able to hear even more about like their chemistry and their story and things. But there's so many moments from the original show where I just swear it's them on screen, that they just have this awesome chemistry, and it's so great to see it again on the screen together. I love it. So Angie and Bette have this like argument, and obviously that's when we do get a little bit more about Tina, and it's clear that Tina is not in LA and lives somewhere else, because Angie's like, I want to go and live with Mama T. And Jennifer Beals in this scene, just, I mean, you guys know that there's not an episode review that goes by that I don't mention Jennifer Beals acting, because hello, like, she is just such an amazing actress and so unsung that she's awesome in this scene. And when Angie does say her line about wanting to live with Tina, you can just see like the absolute devastation in Bette's face. And I think that scene, especially in a premiere where Jordan Hull, who plays Angie, like, obviously I think this is like her first real job too, and she's not only in a show that is a reboot and has an extremely loyal audience, but she's acting alongside Jennifer Beals alone. So they did an awesome job with the scene. I thought it was really well done. The acting was awesome. The writing was done really well. We got a little bit of information to keep us interested, but not too much that they gave it all away. And it was one of the best scenes from the episode, absolutely. So we end the episode with Danny coming to Bette and asking her for a job. And obviously at this stage there was like little seeds being planted about Danny being like a Bette Jr. And I know that there was a lot of people saying about Bette and Danny and Danette and them being together. Like, from day one, I've always been of the Danny is like a mentee to Bette. I know there's some people that are hardcore Bette and Danny, but I think if they got together, it would just like kaput all the growth that Bette has done since we've known her, basically. So I love that they're bringing them together, because they are both obviously really strong characters. I like the chemistry between them. I like the both the actresses. I think that it was a really smart thing to do, to bring Danny in as like connection to Bette that way, and kind of giving each of the OGs like their newbie. So it makes a lot of sense, because otherwise I feel like Danny and Micah would be left out a little bit, because you'd have Finley with Shane and Alice, and then Sophie with Alice, and it might kind of cause a little bit of division and problems divvying up the screen time. So it was a good job that they brought Danny in to the Bette side, and it made total sense as well, because obviously you can see from this first episode that Bette is at the end seeing a bit of herself in Danny. And so that's pretty much it for this first episode of Generation Q. You know, as I've said throughout, I really loved this episode. I think it was a big task to, one, do the reboot in the first place, and to have a premiere that both satisfied OG fans of the show and brought in new fans as well. And I know there's a lot of new fans, because someone even last night told me, oh, season 2 is the first time that I'm ever going to watch the show like in real time. and there's a lot of younger people who definitely, you know, weren't old enough to watch the original show when it was on. So I think that this episode did it beautifully. It gave everybody adequate screen time and kind of established the new people, so we were starting to learn a little bit about them. Again, I wish there was more Gigi. I didn't get enough of her. And I could have done without that first scene, but I just really love this episode. Clearly, you know, the highlight to me was the Bette, Alice, and Shane scenes. It honestly was just like slipping back into the OG, and no time had passed because clearly all three of them do not look like time has passed. So I need to get a hold of whatever they are drinking, because clearly it is like the Philosopher's Stone or something, because they are not aging. And as I said, my favorite moment was that moment at the table where Shane and Alice are like, Tina, and all the other little references, you know, Alice's mom and the vagina rejuvenation, and of course the sign stealing, all those little moments. It really made me feel seen as an OG fan, and I loved all those bits, and I hope that we continue to get little gems like that throughout season 2. So as I said at the beginning of the video, make sure that if you want to talk about season 2 of Generation Q and go over all the news, pictures, locations, updates for the week, make sure to join my lives, which are usually on Friday at 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 11 a.m. Pacific. Again, whenever the trailer drops, you guys will hear about it if you're subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe and make sure to hit the bell notification so that you're notified when I post, and then you'll be able to see the trailer straight away once I drop it. And also don't forget to follow me over on social media. I post a lot of content over there, lots of behind the scenes pictures. And of course, this week is also Lesbian Visibility Week. So every single day I'm doing a post about shows, writers, actresses, movies that I think do a good job of shining a light on our community in a positive way. So make sure to follow me over there if you want to see some cool stuff this week. And always, basically, because there's a lot of behind the scenes pictures that have been coming out lately, and I always love to share them with you guys too. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, and as I said before, make sure to subscribe so that you're kept up to date with all the latest news on the L Word Generation Q. And I will be starting Dexter videos on the channel when the new season of that starts. So if you enjoy that show, that's another one that I'll be covering on the channel. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.